Hello, welcome to my presentation about .vvm and JavaScript. I am Milan Mikuš and I am one of the .vvm developers. I would like to tell you something about new features in .vvm that are intended to make JavaScript and .vvm integrate smoothly and seamlessly. What's our motivation? Why would we do that? Like, whole premise of .vvm is like you will write less JavaScript if you use .vvm. That's like selling point, right? Okay, well, in modern application you cannot really avoid JavaScript, and there are tons and tons of awesome components that we want to take advantage of. There is like whole JavaScript framework, and we decided that it's about time to make .vvm integrate with this whole ecosystem much more seamlessly. If you have any questions about what I will be talking about at any point, you can write it in the chat, and later we will answer them. So, first thing first, I'm going to show you something about each feature in a presentation. Then I will show you a demo where all the things and all the features that I will be showing you and telling you about, I will show you how they are used. Okay, so first feature that is intended to integrate .vvm with JavaScript is are called so-called JS modules. Basically, how it is now is like you have .vvm page, and you have some kind of code behind in C#. You have view models, or if it's .control, you have view models and base type for the control. And now we thought, okay, we know there are JavaScript modules. So what about if we loaded module into the .vvm page, and we could use the JavaScript module. By JavaScript modules I mean literally the feature of JavaScript, like module. We could load the modules into .vvm page, and then we would have this sort of code behind, but for the JavaScript code that would integrate into the .html files. Okay, so how did we do that? To set up this relationship, as you know, all the .vvm modules, all the .vvm resources like JavaScript and CSS files and such are managed in .vvm. They are represented as resources. Resources are registered in startup .vvm startup file. They are registered so they can be used in .html page. So the .vvm module for .vvm page is like a JavaScript file like any other. Therefore, it needs to be registered as a resource in .vvm startup. Okay, once it is registered, we can use it, we can reference it into .html file. That means control or a view, and so then it is loaded and we can use it. we can use it. Yeah. So there are like two systems, and um, when we go into the code, in the code we can see this integration in standard .html control. Let me make this bigger. That's it. Yeah, that should be clear. Okay, so we introduced new directive that is called add.js directive. Add.js directive references the resource that has been registered in .vvm startup before. The registration looks like any other registration, something like resource register something. Then when the resource is registered and referenced in the .html page, we can use it by name in the JS directive. The JS directive tells .vvm that it should load the code behind the JavaScript code behind file, the module into the .vvm page or control. It works the same for controls. In control we have now we have for control code behind. As always, we have the control, and we have the reference to the JS resource, and the resource we put into same folder, and this is ordinary JavaScript module file that is referenced using this directive right into the page. When it is loaded, it can be used. So, how to? There are two ways how to work with JavaScript modules in .vvm. Of course, we will reference the one or more modules as a resources from using the JS directive in the .html file, but there are basically two ways to do it. You can directly reference the modules. The modules, of course, can reference other modules and so on and so on. Or you can use bundler. The bundler at present doesn't support as many frameworks do it. For example, React, that they will bundle whole application into one file. That is not how we do it currently in .vvm, because we still need the resource to reference from using the JS directive in the .html page. So what we need to do is whatever bundler you use, for example, Webpack or Rollup or any other, you need to bundle all the modules, but to make it so there will be one output JavaScript file per page or per control. So I would like to have my I will have to figure out how to move my myself so I can show you the other picture. Okay, that's it. Thank you. And what is happening here is we take all these modules that reference each other, we bundle it using a bundler. The result is one JS file that can be registered in .vvm as a resource, and then can be then the file can be referenced into the .html page or .html control. Currently, we are working on templates that will do this for you. It's still in development. We will keep you updated on this. It's one of our projects. In my example, I will be showing you the direct route. I will not be using bundler for simplicity's sake, because there is a lot of code that needs to happen to set up, for example, rollup to produce one bundle per page or control. So I will be using this direct approach, the modules that reference other modules, and the root module is referenced then in the .html page. So let me tell you about how actually we are using the modules, the JavaScript modules, to take advantage of the JavaScript world. Our thinking was like this. Okay, we have control code behind and view models that themselves have like life cycle, and JavaScript modules doesn't have any. They don't have anything like that. They are just basically they function as a static singleton classes that are loaded once, and then so long as the page lives or is loaded into the browser, the module is also loaded. They are loaded once on the start of the page, then they never change. So we invented concept for .vvm JavaScript module support that we call view module. View module, it's because maybe it's not that awesome name, because we have view models and can become confusing, but this is view module. So, and the thinking behind this is that it is a module that is loaded for a view that is coupled with a view, with a page or with a control. We were looking for concept that with pages, this is not as visible if you do not use SPAs, single page applications, but in controls, one of the things you have to ensure when you have some kind of JavaScript code running on the background, that the code is initialized when the control appears in the view. And if the control, for example, in repeater, there can be multiple controls that go into view and go out of view, for example, as you page. So we made construct using JavaScript modules that will make managing life cycle of your JavaScript code easier. We call it view modules. And view modules is nothing else but one object that is created and exported from the JavaScript module file loaded into the view. I will show you in the code. For example, this is one such control that references JS code, that references JS module. It is loaded, and in the JavaScript file you can see we have a class that represents some kind of logic that we want to provide, and this object is created, and then it is provided as a default export for this JavaScript module. And we call this default export class view module. And the view module has its constructor. It can have destructor, and there can be public members, and those public members then can be called from .vvm markup file. So the view modules are different from JavaScript module concept in that this object, this default export object that we call view module, is initialized with a page or with a control, and it is destroyed after the page is navigated from or the control falls out of the view. That means it is paged away or the control is hidden with including page and so on. And to make your life easier when doing your calls into the JavaScript module code, we also carry context that contains the most important properties that can be useful to have in the context of JavaScript code. It carries properties for .html controls, .html controls. It carries it carries properties. It carries it also carries registered other content that I will show you later. And this defaultly exported view module can have one instance per control, as opposed to JavaScript modules that are loaded once on the start of the page, and then they are basically function comparatively to static classes in C#. So those are the differences between JavaScript module concept and what we call view module. I will refer to this defaultly exported object from view module from module referenced in .html page as view module from now on. So the life cycle of the view module goes like this. It is initialized with the page or control. The initialization is called to a constructor. This replaces what before you had to subscribe to .vvm event init if you wanted to make initializations in JavaScript code that required .vvm to exist. Now you can simply put it into constructor of the view module, and you will have full .vvm, you will have bindings, you will have almost everything initialized. Then when the page is navigated from, if you are using SPA, single page applications, or if you are using the module in .control, if it is navigated from, destructor is called. You can call your own code. For example, if you have something on the control that you want to free some JavaScript objects from the control, hide something, you can do it in destructor. And the communication, and we have a way now that from static command you can call the public properties, public functions in the view module. So it is very easy. You just define a function in the view module object, and then you can call them from .html page. And next I will introduce you to the named command concept that we introduce specifically so that you can define the command inside of .html page using static command, or in fact normal command right into the .html page. You can then call this named command from the view module. Before, this functionality was really hard to do. People usually did something like they used hidden button and they clicked it from JavaScript code, or some hack like that was not very elegant. Now we have really elegant way to call our command code from JavaScript. You simply call it as a named command from JS module. So these things come together as sort of JavaScript friendly tool set. We have what I've been talking about is like this is the way you call the named commands from the view modules JavaScript code. We have static command that are just C# translated more or less to JavaScript that you can call server-side code from. You can also call JavaScript code from the static commands using JS invoke. But when you are using JS invoke, you simply invoke the public function of the module that is loaded into your .html page or the control. We support Lambda functions both in commands and static commands. So that means if you have for example named command that requires parameters, you can use Lambda function, and then in JavaScript code you provide arguments to the code. And we have, you probably already know, we have service directive. This is way to reference services that are then injected into your page, and you can reference them by their name, and you call whatever function on the C# class class you want. I will show you in the code now. In our more modern projects, we now use this kind of C# JavaScript mixed architecture. You see, I have in my page I have reference to actually. Let me show you dashboard from the demo. That's a little more complicated. I am referencing this dashboard UI service. This is C# class that is like created using dependency injection. The dependency injection provides for us all the required services from the business layer, provides for us context, and you can from this instantiated service class you can call public methods decorated with allow static command. So using this approach, you simply reference this service like so, and this creates instance of the service class, injects it into the page using dependency injection, and when referencing the service, you can simply call the service using service dot and I call here dashboard users, for example. So when I am edit, I will also show you the named command. This is the name command control that is used to create commands that can be referenced from JavaScript code. So we have now this service class. We have JavaScript code referenced as dashboard.js. The source code for the dashboard.js is in this dashboard.ts file. It will be compiled on save, and this dashboard.ts file has instance of the view module, has this view module class that the add.js creates instance of. It contains public method that we can call from the dashboard.html file when we need to call JavaScript. As you can see, it is ordinary module. We use import like so. We use export. And this provides us with, and of course every page has its view model, as you know from the older versions of .vvm. So in this way, you have this hybrid C# JavaScript architecture. You can use view models to store your state in C#, and do things on server side using view models as you are used to. You can use services, service classes that you can inject, and then you can call them from static commands. Usually this is used to load some additional data. You can see here the service class is used to fill user info. And then we have finally last piece of the puzzle, the reference to JavaScript module to reference our view module. And from the view module, we can call the JavaScript using underscore JS invoke, and we provide name and we provide parameters for the function that we want to call from the JS module. Is the register hub function. It is over here. Register hub takes these arguments from our .html file, and this .html file provides the arguments. It passes them right here, and then we can call register. In this instance, we register some signalware hub. This is the new idea how to perform your hybrid C#/JavaScript workload. Now I really like how now we finish this feature. It comes all together. This comes all together, and now we can seamlessly go from JavaScript to C#, back to JavaScript to .html files, to controls. And I have tried it on several of my projects, and I really loved it. For example, we had one application that we needed to integrate into Teams. Of course, the Teams API is strictly JavaScript based, React based. So we used this hybrid approach to initialize what we need from the JavaScript API. We used React controls and or referenced some purely JavaScript controls, like so. This is about the named commands. I already talked a bit about the named commands, but now I now properly I will what they are used for. They are used for if you want to call some method uh, on the server side from JavaScript code. You defined this named command in the .html file using let me get rid of the preview of myself. Yeah, so now you can see it's named command refresh questions. It is simply a control, but what the control does, it on the background it makes it possible for the view module to call the refresh question command. In the view module, it is called like so. You use the module context that I mentioned before, and you call it by name. You can also use lambda over here. And if you use lambda, you can pass arguments in view module when you call it like so. Here we would pass the arguments. The named commands also support tasks, so you can run, for example, if your service has some asynchronous operations that you want to call, you simply use task for this. There is no problem. The commands, the named commands that are asynchronous, they are translated to use promises on the JavaScript side. So basically, it creates sort of this bridge and makes this really useful tool when you basically have asynchronous server operation that you will evade here in JavaScript module in the view module. So now I will show you the demo. This is my GitHub where you can find the demo. This QR code contains this link, so you can use that also. And now to the demo. If you, I realize that like the demo has some complexity to it that need like some time to look into, but you can find it on GitHub. You can also comment on it if you want to ask anything about the demo. I will be glad to extend the demo or using this example show something. We have this. I did this kind of copy of Slido or similar application that you use to ask questions. On the background, it uses Signaler. So basically, I connect. I am here as a connected user. You can go to the dashboard either using the link or using the QR code. The QR code is purely JavaScript control that I used, and I used view module to initialize the QR code control. I will when I open another tab, I can connect as a second user, and I can ask question like and it's connected using Signaler. So when we ask something, and we can like it, and the most liked question goes on the top. This app took me like little more than 8 hours with styling, with everything to do, mainly thanks to the JS modules and to the connection to the new possibilities that we created in the .vvm to connect. So I will show you first the QR control. It's very simple control. Basically, it's basically empty, has no view model, but I use it as a JavaScript control. Here I just reference the view module. In the view module, in the constructor, in the module context, that is the context that is provided with context of the control the module is created from. So we have element. It's an element. The first element of the elements array is the element wrapper of the control, of the dot control, and like so you can reference it to create the new QR control, and just like so, with minimal effort, you integrated purely JavaScript control into the .html page. Here is the reference of the control. It is used like any other custom markup control, QR like this. There is only one little complexity you will find in the demo. On the start, when I started the lecture, I told you that you need to actually register and reference the JS the module that the view module is in. You have to reference it as a resource. So we would have to do something like, oh, this is not what I wanted. It's too happy to provide me with useful advice always, because I am one line higher than I should supposed to be. We would have to reference the module, the JavaScript module, because it is registered in .startup as a resource. We would have to reference it something like this, by name, like that. And you can do it. There is nothing wrong with doing this. This is usually how we do it in smaller projects. We will just reference it. We will just reference the module. This will, on the background, it will create JavaScript code. It will create JavaScript block that references or basically the JavaScript source block. I can show you. When I put inspect, basically this reference does nothing else. It just creates some reference to the script as so. As you can. So, but to avoid this, we do a bit of trickery. We have base for all our markup controls and also for our view models, that when it's loaded, it by name, by convention, it tries to register if it exists. The JS module, JS resource module with the same name as the control, and also if there was CSS file next to this, it would try to register that resource also. Its own init So this is just like simplification that we use on our projects that helps us register by convention the JavaScript modules and the CSS style sheets. We were discussing about that we could do something like this in .vvm, so that would be some kind of auto discovery. And another bit of trickery is what I was saying before, that we need to register the resource file for the module as you would normally do. Those are libraries are registered just like you are used to using file resource location registered as so, and with this file resource location, but we also in this sample I provided some simple code that again it's a bit of trickery. It tries to traverse all the page, it tries to traverse the page directory, and it tries to also traverse the control directory, and it tries to register all the files on the server that are in the correct directories together with the .html files, and it basically traverses the directories and auto registers all the JavaScript and style sheet files with the convention under the resource name by convention, and then this name for this instance it is QR code link dash JS, and it's registered here by this routine. It's auto registered. That's why and then it's auto edit in this code behind it is auto edit by convention, and that's why everybody that creates new code behind or page can just simply use add JS directive like this. It's a bit of code, but you write this code once, and then you just have to use this base class, and like everything is registered for you. So it is thing you do once when you set up the project, and then basically you can reference the JS module simply using the JS directive, and it will be registered as a resource, and the resource will be auto edited into the page. You can simply reference it here. So this is one interesting thing I wanted to show you. Another is that we can, of course, in the modules we can import other modules. For example, I have this base class that registers signaler components. We use here we use library Microsoft Signal R that is for simplicity. Normally we would use something like Webpack or for example Rollup to just bundle together to bundle together the referenced libraries, and it would just work. But for simplicity's sake, I did bit of hack. I put the libraries here in the www root. Here you can see the QR code library. Here you can see the SignalR library, and then the library is like bundled using Webpack. So the module becomes part of the module becomes part of the global window namespace, and in the module I reference it like so from the window namespace, and then I use it as I would use it if you imported it using the import. This is I do this only because I I didn't want to get Webpack and Rollup involved on top of everything. So I just in here I just initialize the signaler connection on the register hub. This is the function that is called when new user connects, and then we register these abstract methods that are then overloaded in the dashboard module. The overloads are like so. One of the overloads calls named command and refreshes the users. Another calls the named command that refreshes the questions. Yes, of course, we could do here some magic that would transport the objects of the changed users using the signaler connections. For the demo, I just wanted to show how to use named commands. If we wanted to transport some objects, there would be just more logic involved, but it would be perfectly possible to do also. And the page. By the way, this whole demo doesn't use any command bindings. Everything is static command. When you use this hybrid approach, there is basically no need to use commands at all. I use my view model. View model I use only as a data storage, and for the client side, and to do some initial loading in pre-render, I load the questions here. It would be possible to load the question and users in the view module, or use some other control that would like load it on demand. I decided to do it here in pre-render, so I did it like so, and then also basically in this hybrid JavaScript approach, on the view model reduces to DTO that has some more logic, for example root parameters, and you can also check if a user is authorized and some such. Then we have this dashboard UI service. It is basically very similar to a controller in MVC. You just it is when you use add service directive in the dashboard page, you just load the instance of the service, and the service is injected, and you can call these methods as you please. I prefer to do the architecture to divide business services. So like in the UI services, I usually have code that is strictly UI related. For example, if I was using some kind of exception filters that would catch exception and, for example, show it in the .html page, I would do it here. I would put the authorization attributes here, and also in new.vvm, when you want to authorize, there is context.authorize. Authorization attributes are deprecated now. Now you would authorize like this. You would put in roles and everything. So this is like UI. So I keep the UI service methods strictly as strictly I do UI related stuff there, and all that has to do with some business logic I do in facades or separate services or use cases, or whichever you prefer to use as your backend. And lastly we have the page itself. that joins all this together. It has data from the view model. It has functionality from the service class. By the way, it doesn't have to be called service. I was just lazy. I called it service. And so it comes nicely together, like so. Using the named command, I load the users and questions. There is nothing more to it. If you have any questions, ask or the GitHub repo, or ask here in the chat. And I hope this new addition to the .vvm will make your experience with dealing with JavaScript /C# controls more pleasant, and that you will love using it. Thank you for your attention.